So today we're doing the bed frame subassembly, and the first thing that I do is I get one of these M5 by 12 hex heads. We'll put a lock washer on it and then a flat washer, and there's 8 of these, and you'll just do it 8 times. So I've already done 7 of them. Basically have them staged in the corner there. We're working on a flat surface here, so you can true and square and flush everything up. So the next thing I'll do is start inserting my T-nuts. So on the bottom rail, when you look at the skinny side up, the bottom rail, on the outer part, you're going to put 2 T-nuts. Then you're going to get 2 of your angle brackets and 2 M5 by 8s. And on the angle bracket, you're going to use the almost centered side, not the side that's closest to the edge, to put your hardware in. And do that one. Do this one. And with having a flat surface to build on, I just kind of started out randomly there, and then I'll match the ones on the other side. Now I'll get 4 T-nuts, and in this rear rail, and the T-nuts, I guess I should have said at the beginning, the T-nuts need to go with the nipple down, so the flat part is up. So we'll install those. I'll get my Panduit and 2 more M5 by 8s. Now I have a few more tools here than you may have at home. And you'll want to put this hardware in the smaller holes, not the larger ones. And I separate a couple of them, and I'm not going to actually really do a final torque on it. I just make sure it's captured. And I go to the other one, make sure it's captured, and I'll kind of center it and just make it where it doesn't slide from one side to the other. You don't lose your hardware. So it's just basically touching. Now we'll go to the front rail. Once again, on this bottom side, we're going to put 2 more T-nuts. And 2 more angle brackets. And you're wanting to put the angle on the, or the flat part of the angle on the short side of your cross rail. So I've started them to kind of flush them up. I get the ends kind of square. This is nowhere near final assembly. And I'm just snugging those up so you can't move them. Now I'm going to take, well, first I'm going to take the Panduit so I don't lose it and put it on there, the Panduit lid. And then I'm going to take the 2 side plates, put one on either side, and the notch portion, the short portion, there is the rear, which is going to have the Panduit on it. This long edge is the front. We're building the bed frame upside down, so this actually goes down, so that's what it'll look like when it's actually on your bot. But since we're building it upside down to flush everything to the top, we're going to put it this way. Now your 8 M5 by 12 hex head, lock washer, and flat washer, we're going to install these in the ends of the cross rails in the slotted section of the bedside plates. And I get it just to where the lock washer starts to crush, so they kind of hold in place. There we go, and we're going to repeat that 3 more times. Now before you put the other end on, you just make sure that you have all your parts and pieces, because if you don't put your T-nuts in, like for your Panduit or these other 2 T-nuts for your cable carrier, you'll have to take it all apart and slide them back in. So quick check, we have all that in there. Slide it to the edge here, and you can see how these kind of line up. You have a lot of room to play. And you're wanting to install them, since you're doing the bed upside down, all the way to the bottom of these slots as they sit here, which is making the bed go up as far as it can go. So whenever you adjust your bed, whenever you have your bot built or level your bed, you'll be lowering it. Okay, so we have it basically built. And building it on a flat surface, which could be a good kitchen counter, preferably like a granite kitchen counter, something like that, works the best. You can use your square. I have what we call a 1, 2, 3 block. And if you look here in the corner, what we're doing is we're just trying to make the front of this cross rail flush with the edge of this. So that's all I'm doing here. So I'm making sure that the edges is flush here, that it's all the way down, so the bottom edges here will be flush. But so I'm pushing down on both of these too. So it's, you need 6 extra hands to do this. And I'm not torquing them very tight, just for the fact that you're going to come back, and whenever you level your bed, you're going to have to loosen them up, and then you'll tighten them a little bit tighter whenever you level your bed. So once again, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it to all 4 corners. I just check to make sure that it's flush. There we go. So now what we'll move on to is the bed leveling blocks. And you have a right and left bed leveling block, and this is what they look like. The right one is going to have the upper stop, so as they're installed on the bot, they'll look like this. You want about 7/8 of an inch of the bolt sticking down, so you see the head of the bolt is sticking down that far. This is the end that'll touch. The reason why is on your upper limit switch, you don't want your hot ends to hit the bed when you zero it. And on the other end, it looks like about 5/16 of an inch. It's basically 2 widths of the head, two regular nut widths for the lower limit switch. So this one's going to go on the left hand side like this and touch the lower limit switch. We have it so far up so whenever you install it, you don't end up hitting and damaging the lower limit switch. You'll have to adjust that later. So just as a sub-assembly location, that's basically where you want to be. So now what we'll do is we are going to install the right, and I'm putting it on the left hand side once again because we're building it upside down. So right's on the left, left's on the right. I'm going to get 2 M 5x12 pan heads, and I'll make sure that this tip is in the groove. This piece is sticking out about 3/4 of an inch. You don't want to stick it have it sticking through too far, because if you do, then these holes will not line up here. It'll actually be too high. So it's better to have it a little shy, so then when you go to put your screws in, you can easily do that. So there, I've started it. Now I'm going to get my electric drill motor and do a final torque. And I'm pushing down on the block at the same time to basically bottom out these pieces of hardware in the hole. And if you look, there should be a little gap at the bottom right here between the leveling screw and the cross rail, which is exactly what you're looking for. So now I'll put on the left one. It's a little bit easier to see this, how I take and make sure that the tip is in the groove. And I just want to start these. And I'm going to press down on it. Get the hardware in there. I'm going to flip the bed frame around so I can access the two rear bed leveling block sub-assemblies. Once again, all of these were about 3/4 of an inch down. We're going to do the same thing. These were a little bit easier to put on. Just make sure that the bed leveling block screw is actually started in the groove in the back. And you're going to do the same thing. I push it down, do a final torque. Make sure that at this point you want to make sure that your two T-nuts are not underneath where your leveling block and piece of hardware is at. Make sure that that's clear. There we go. Now we have two different kind of spacers. We have a round spacer that's non-adjustable. You just slide it on your piece of hardware. And then you also have an eccentric. The hole is drilled off center. And this is for the V-groove wheels. You can also see that there's a lip. This lip is what interfaces with the side of the bot over here, or the bed plate. So it actually goes in here like that, and you can move it around to adjust your wheels. So we're going to start with the rear wheels here. So I'll take an M5 by 30 button head, put it through the hardware, I guess, through the wheel. I put all the hardware through the wheels right now. And so then I'm going to get one of the just spacers, the non-adjustable ones, put it on the piece of hardware and wheel there. I'll get a flat washer, put it on, and then I'll get a little grease, and this helps prevent galling of the hardware. And so now I have an M5 nylock lock nut. And I'll put that on there. And the nylocks, you always want to screw them down in the metal threads until they actually engage into the nylocks. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. There you go. Now I'll get the it's a 8mm, so I guess it's 8mm, and hold this nut as I use a 3mm Allen wrench, and I'm pushing backwards once again, pushing this way towards the back to make sure that the hardware is seated in the back of that hole. And you want to go slow, then you can go fast at the end, so that way you don't end up cross threading or galling your hardware. If it gets real hard when you're using the electric drill motor, you need to stop, take the piece of hardware out, see if there's any damage to the screw, and if there is, use another one, or just use another lock nut. There we go. I'll flip it over for access here. We're going to do the exact same thing, just on the upper. There we go. We'll tighten these once again, pushing towards the back. It's just a little bit easier to adjust the V-groove wheels when you do that, because the hardware is already sitting in the back of the hole. So I'll put them in there pretty tight. You notice that the full torque of the drill motor goes, and then I go a little bit further. That's basically a final torque on those screws. So I flipped it back over, upside down. You've got 3 holes here that are going to be for V-groove wheels, and you have 3 holes here that are for V-groove wheels. The 2 in the back are the stationary non-adjustable wheels, and all the other ones are going to be have eccentrics in it. But when you look at this, your Z upright rail is going to go here and here. And what we're doing is we're only putting the back wheels on, so I only want to put this one wheel on. So that's why we have 2 wheels left. And so what I'll do is I'll take my grease and I'll put a very small bead of grease on, and then on the small side of the eccentrics I'll put a black dot, or mark the whole side black, and that's going to go away from your rail. So your rail goes here, your black dot's going to go away from your rail. This rear one is going to go towards the rear. You use the grease because the grease helps has adhesion properties to hold that eccentric in place. And I've already greased the threads there. And the reason why is when you have the eccentric in, you want to kind of hold this so you don't end up losing your eccentric. So I hold it, I'll put my electric drill motor in, then I'll tighten it. Now it did move a little bit, so what I'll do is I'll back it off to where the black mark is in the back. That's as wide as your wheels can go. That way when you put your bed on, you don't have to worry about any kind of pinching or anything like that, any kind of interference bit. And once again, your rail is going to go here, and this is the back. So we're going to put it on this hole right here. Put our grease. We're going to look at our black mark, which is on the short side. We're going to place that in the hole. I've got my hardware. I'm going to go ahead and pre-grease it. I didn't mention it on the other one, but all of these have a flat washer and then a lock nut. So whether you're using the stationary or non-stationary, stationary or eccentric spacers, they get a flat washer and a lock nut. And this one came off a little bit, spun on me. And so you also want to wiggle your wheels, make sure that your hardware is in there firm, that the hardware basically is bottomed out. And there you go. There is your bed frame subassembly. Flush on the front, flush on the top. Ready to be installed on your Gigabot.